Humanity had always been a species that sang. Work songs in the fields, hymns in stone cathedrals, anthems screamed in stadiums, lullabies hummed over cribs in the dark. So when the galaxy finally met a species that spoke entirely in song, humans didn't find it strange at all, they found it familiar. The Auren arrived not as refugees, but as pilgrims. A slight, hollow-boned species with resonating chest cavities and long throat ridges that let them layer 3, sometimes 4 notes at once into a single word. They didn't have a spoken language. They had never needed one. Among the Auren, meaning lived in harmony, not vocabulary. A flat, unmusical statement was, to them, the same as a lie, which was exactly why the Threnn Dominion had cut their vocal cords. Cultural enclave. Lower New Shanghai Captain Owen Reyes had never learned to carry a tune in his life, and in 3 years working alongside the Auren, that had somehow become the least of his problems. He stood in the enclave's central hall, a vaulted dome built specifically for acoustics, watching an Auren named Versol rehearse the evening greeting with a class of human schoolchildren. Versol's throat ridges pulsed in slow, layered waves, a rising harmony that even Owen, tone-deaf as he was, felt land somewhere behind his ribs. The greeting means, roughly, "The day arrives and finds us glad of it." The translator drone above the dome chimed, rendering the layered notes into flat human text on a screen. Auren cannot render this phrase falsely. The harmony physically will not resolve if the singer does not mean it. One of the kids, a girl no older than 7, tried to hum it back. It came out cracked and off-key. Versol's throat ridges rippled, the Auren equivalent of a laugh, and sang the phrase again, slower, patient as a tide. Owen had asked Versol once, months ago, why the Auren had fled Threnn space to begin with. The answer had taken almost a full minute to sing, and the translator had struggled to compress it into words at all. We would not sing their anthems of conquest. A song we do not mean cannot leave our throats. They called this treason. We called it the only thing we are physically incapable of lying about. Owen hadn't understood then what the Dominion would do about that. He understood 3 days later. The Threnn cruiser verdict didn't fire on the Enclave. It didn't need to. It landed a retrieval company directly on the dome's central plaza in broad daylight, in full view of 1,000 witnesses, and the soldiers didn't reach for weapons first. They reached for knives. By the time the new Shanghai garrison arrived, it was already over. The Threnn had left 11 Auren alive deliberately, propped in a half-circle facing the dome's central archway, a silencing, staged like a performance for whoever found them first. Every one of them had their throat ridges surgically severed. Owen found Versol at the edge of the circle, still breathing, blood pooling dark against pale stone. The translator drone hovered low, straining to catch anything at all from a throat that could no longer carry harmony. What came out instead was a single flat, broken note, the first unmusical sound Owen had ever heard an Auren make. The drone caught it anyway, and rendered it haltingly onto the screen. We removed their voices so they could never again refuse to sing our victories. A pause. Versol's throat ridges twitched weakly, trying and failing to layer a second note over the first. "I am sorry, Owen, I cannot finish the greeting today." The throat ridges went still. The drone hovered a long moment over silence it had never been designed to translate, then dimmed its display and drifted away, as if even the machine understood there was nothing left worth rendering. The footage from New Shanghai didn't need commentary. The Threnn hadn't hidden their faces. They hadn't hidden anything. The massacre had been staged deliberately for cameras, a message broadcast in the universal language of a species that had never learned that some audiences don't forgive an insult to their family. Ambassador Priya. At our watch, the chamber go silent in the particular way it only ever went silent once a year, if that. 300 delegates who an hour earlier had been arguing about tariff schedules on refined helium now sat staring at a frozen frame of 11 bodies arranged like a broken cord. The Brazilian delegate stood first. He didn't ask for the floor. They didn't just kill them, he said, voice flat with fury. They made sure the Auren could never sing again, even in death. The German delegate rose beside him. Then we make sure the Dominion never sings a victory anthem again either. Nobody objected. Nobody abstained. The vote took 4 minutes, and every one of them was spent in silence because for once, Humanity understood exactly why the Auren valued a harmony too honest to fake. Earth didn't build ships shaped like instruments of vengeance. It built them shaped like whatever was fastest to weld. Every shipyard from Luna to the Belt retooled within a day. Grain freighters became railgun platforms. Mining barges became boarding cruisers. The design brief, as always, was brutal and simple. These ships exist to arrive, not to survive. The Auren wouldn't touch a weapon. That hadn't changed even now. But in the shipyards, something else happened that nobody in command had planned for. Auren survivors, throats still bandaged, silent forever, began appearing at the reactor bays anyway. They couldn't sing the old harmonic calibrations that used to keep human fusion cores stable and singing true. So instead they wrote them, laid the same tonal patterns out as sheet music note by note, and taught human engineers to hum the frequencies themselves. Every ship in the retaliation fleet left dry dock carrying, somewhere in its reactor housing, a scrap of hand-written Auren sheet music taped beside the control panel. The engineers hummed it under their breath during startup sequences, badly off-key. Human, but they hummed it every single time. 12 days after New Shanghai, the fleet dropped into Threnn space, ugly and graceless and utterly silent on approach, exactly the way the Dominion had left the Auren. Grand Marshal Keswick had built an empire on the doctrine that conquered species should be grateful for the privilege of obedience. He watched his sensor grid fill with contacts that made no sense, hundreds of graceless human hulls, radio silent, running dark, closing without a single hail. "They're not broadcasting anything," his communications officer said, unnerved. "No demands. No warnings, nothing." Keswick almost laughed. "Even their war has no language." His communications officer didn't laugh back. "Sir, I don't think they have anything left they want to say to us." The dome had been rebuilt with the same acoustics, note for note, down to the last measurement. In its center, where the 11 had been left, a low reflecting pool held still black water instead of a statue. The Auren, it turned out, had no tradition of monuments to the dead. Only silence held in a place built for sound. Owen Reyes stood at the edge of it, holding a small data tablet displaying a single line of translated harmony. The greeting Versol had never finished teaching that little girl. Beside him, a young Auren, one of the Enclave's next generation, throat ridges intact, never touched by the Dominion, opened her mouth and sang it instead. Layered, rising, unmistakably true. The day arrives and finds us glad of it. Owen didn't know the notes. He never would. But he hummed along anyway, badly off-key, human, the same way every reactor core in the fleet above them still did every morning at startup. Somewhere in high orbit, 100 ugly gray warships sat quietly at anchor, radio silent, waiting the way humanity always waited, patiently, and not for very long. If you loved watching a peaceful species get silenced and an entire species answer for it, smash that like button and drop a comment on what alien tradition Earth should carry into the next war. Stay human, stay dangerous.